Hi, Lester, Wushu engineer. I've always been interested in studying the historic evolution of armor as it adapted to the unique threats posed by changing weapons technologies. In fact, I hold a few patents for a new ballistic armor protection system that our R&D company, along with our engineering partners, are in process of offering to the Australian Defence Force for further development. However, that's perhaps a story for another time. I have to give you a fair warning about this video to begin with. There's no martial arts action in this video, but watch on if you're interested in sci-fi fantasy body armor. I want to introduce you to one of my current projects, the Cyberpunk 2077 Samurai Jacket. Isn't it awesome? When I first saw this in the Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, I said to myself, to borrow a phrase from Bobby Duke Arts on YouTube, I want that. Whether intentional or not, I believe the Samurai Jacket is an homage to two other related franchises, Shadowrun and Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack is an animated series that follows the adventures of an ancient samurai who is magically transported into the far distant future, where he is renamed Jack and is forced to battle his ancient evil nemesis in order to find his way back home to his actual time. Shadowrun is another tabletop RPG system like Cyberpunk 2020, set in a cyberpunk-like world which combines magic and high technology. One of the player classes available in the game Shadowrun is the Street Samurai, and I believe that the Samurai Jacket may be a reference to this character class. So let's look at what the lore says about the Samurai Jacket. According to the Cyberpunk fandom wiki, it's a piece of clothing that players have access to early in the game Cyberpunk 2077. In-game, the jacket is named after the Samurai rock band. The jacket increases street cred leveling speed by 5%, and also provides plus 30 resistance to physical, thermal, EMP, and chemical damage. So let's analyze the basic physical design of the Samurai Jacket. I really only have one main criticism of the design. It's just more than likely justified in the in-game lore with reasons like it's high-tech, don't you worry about it. And that's the front zipper, which runs the full length of the garment. If the jacket is meant to act as some form of armor, which is clear from the stats given in the fandom wiki, having a front zipper adds an unnecessary weakness to the armor where you would need it to be the strongest. I do understand that making the jacket so that it could be worn open in the front adds necessary street cred, but it's a major compromise in terms of its protective capacity. Another feature that stands out about the design, but which I believe is actually quite tactically effective, is the high-backed collar that could potentially protect the back and sides of the neck. It has some kind of illuminated collar lining. Whether this is somehow functional or merely for the look is anyone's guess. I don't feel that this would be particularly useful, especially if the solo wearing it was meant to be able to go covert. Finally, we have these strange studs or canisters on the shoulders. These are possibly supposed to be technical in some way, perhaps having something to do with either chemical, thermal, or EMP protection. Although why they should be needed to provide any of these resistances, I can't tell. Chemical, thermal, and EMP protection can be easily provided in the material of the jacket itself, rather than in some kind of canisters on the shoulders. Once again, maybe they're just for show. So this feature I do not necessarily see the point of. I happen to have this old motorcycle jacket lying around, which I decided to use as the basis for my version of the Samurai Jacket. I think it will work quite well without me having to do too much extra work. won't look exactly like the samurai jacket as portrayed in the Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, but it'll certainly be inspired by it. However, I don't just want a jacket that looks a bit like the samurai jacket. I want one that would actually function as a form of armor in the Cyberpunk or Shadowrun setting. Of course, in Australia, a bulletproof vest or protective body vest or body armor designed to prevent the penetration of small arms projectiles is classed as a Category E weapon and is thus restricted to those who have legitimate reason for owning one, such as police officers and some security personnel. So I could not design the armor components of the samurai jacket to be bulletproof, or it would become illegal for me to own. However, although most of the combat within Cyberpunk and Shadowrun settings is firearms based, there is a significant portion of this combat which is based on melee or hand-to-hand fighting. One of the reasons for this may be that in these alternative realities, ballistic protection against most small arms fire has possibly become so advanced and commonplace that it's incumbent on the operatives in these worlds to have access to melee options, which may be more effective to deal with threats in certain circumstances. So I decided to design my samurai jacket to resist conventional melee weapons, as well as the types of exotic powered melee weapons that are part of the Cyberpunk and Shadowrun sci-fi fantasy universes. So I did a lot of testing and failed a lot. Stopping significant edged and piercing weapon attacks is not easy, but I finally came up with a successful combination of materials, including titanium and ceramics, which I will discuss in a follow-up video. In addition to adapting to the threats posed by these weapon types, the samurai jacket would have to be able to function effectively within the Cyberpunk Shadowrun universes. As such, although it would not be designed to offer ballistic protection, it would have to be able to allow the wearer to function tactically within environments where gunfights would predominate. So a full suit of plate armor, while being very effective in melee, would not be very tactically effective in this case, because the additional weight and encumbrance may reduce the mobility of the wearer, rendering them susceptible to gunfire while offering little to no protection against said gunfire. Unless they were designed as such, but we can't do that here because of the laws down under. A compromise thus has to be made in terms of providing protection only for key areas and vital organs, similar to the compromises made for conventional ballistic armor. Many ballistic vests only offer protection for a relatively small area of the chest and back, because statistically these are the areas that the wearer is most likely to suffer gunshot wounds to. The other consideration that I took into account in terms of opting for reduced protection only at key areas is driven by the skill or stat often called street cred, mentioned earlier. Shadowrunners and cyberpunk operatives have to maintain a certain level of cool in terms of their appearance, or their street cred suffers, which may have a negative impact on the availability of contracts or access to high-level contacts. While it is possible to make a full suit of armor look cool, it is much easier to achieve a schmick appearance with armor that looks more like edgy, fashionable clothing, which is really why the samurai jacket looks like it does in the Cyberpunk 2077 preview. It's meant to look cool to give the wearer enhanced street cred. Taking all of this into account, there were some additional modifications I had to make in the design. One thing that I had to account for was the zipper down the front of the jacket. This would introduce a weak point in a critical location in the armor, as discussed previously. So I opted for an inner and outer shell construction for the samurai jacket. The inner shell would be an armored vest designed with flexible plates that fully protected critical organs on the front and the back. The outer shell would essentially be made to look like the samurai jacket. The inner shell would be designed to look like a t-shirt worn under the jacket, although it will actually be integral to the jacket. This would allow the jacket to be left open in the front, as seen in the Cyberpunk 2077 preview clip, without compromising the protection provided by the inner shell. The high turned-up collar of the samurai jacket, I thought, was a great tactically effective component of the original design, so I'll be incorporating that. I'm quite excited about this project, I hope you are too, and I look forward to sharing more about this project as it unfolds. So I'll see you next time. Cheers.